like 7 a.m. now that I'm filming. I couldn't sleep, so I dressed up, got cute, and really want to do this video for y'all because I think that's why I couldn't sleep, because it was heavy on my heart. You might hear some noise, some tires, something that has to do with outside because I got my windows open. I have a lot of plants, so I want to make sure that they get all the air that they need. Today we'll be talking about the deep mental health implications and self-care. A couple weeks ago, I went to Twitter and I asked if people would be comfortable or okay with me doing content in regard to self-care. As some of you know, I work in the mental health field, so I want to essentially give out some information and tips or ways of looking at things from a mental health standpoint. Today I'm focusing on Black mental health. However, I think it can be applied to other people as well. So stay tuned while we talk about the things that we need to discuss today. So today we're going to talk about the book called The Deep, written by River Solomon. They are a non-binary Black author who wrote this book that's pretty much about slaves who were then turned into mermaids due to being thrown overboard on the transatlantic slave route. This book is heavy for me and for, I think, my other kinfolk because of the history that's entwined into this book. I'll leave you guys a link of the 5-hour live I did with Bookish Reads, Harley, Chloe, and Erica. And we all talked about our thoughts about this book and what it means to us. And it was a very, very long, deep, and in-depth conversation. And I definitely think that if you have time, definitely go and check that out. And again, I'll put that link in the description box below. First, let's get started. So with The Deep, I originally rated it 3 stars, and I think it was because I was not quite in the headspace to read that book. Even though it was a fictional book, it was set in like a fantasy type of setting. However, reading books with the backstory like The Deep is difficult for me at times. While I was first reading the book, I kept finding myself confused on what was going on, and I didn't quite understand what Yetu, who was the main character, purpose was. I think I was more focused on Yetu's character and the pain and what was happening in my personal life at the time that I wasn't able to fully grasp and understand the intersectional themes throughout the book. I read the book for the second time, took rigorous notes, and picked up a lot of things that I didn't catch on the first run. And then on the second run, I rated the book 5 stars on Goodreads. In The Deep, Yetu is really going through a very emotional and psychological journey. She was bestowed the role of being the historian. In the book, a historian is a person who have all the memories of all the slaves and what is happening to Black people from, I think it was up to 600 years prior to Yetu receiving that gift. Just imagine being a human being or a person or a being and receiving that many memories and experiencing that thing, vicarious trauma on a repeated basis every day, and how that may make you feel. I want to discuss with you trauma, right? Trauma is stress. It's pretty much how your body deals with stress, how you react to stress. When you think about trauma, it's easy to think of it as single versus complex. So when you have a single trauma incident, it is an incident that happens to you that causes you to deploy your flight, fight, or freeze responses, and it impacts you in a way that affects you psychologically. Can you heal from that type of trauma? Absolutely. Would it take time? Yes. Then you have complex trauma, which is trauma that happens over and over and over and over again. It's just situation after situation. Does it have to be the same situation? No, it can be multiple different types of situations. This also leads me to micro traumas. That is like a new term coming around. I'm seeing pop up every once in a while. Micro traumas is things that are not as large scale as, let's say, sexual trauma happening to you on a daily basis, and the more times that it happens over a long span of time, it can end up impacting you as severe as something as a sexual trauma. When people are not able to reflect, seek out counseling, or be able to handle the traumas that happen to them in their life, it usually leads to post-traumatic stress disorder, or some is calling it post-traumatic stress syndrome. PTSD and PSS can lead to intrusive memories, avoidance, flashbacks, negative moods, changes in your moods, changes in your reaction to things. Those are all the telltale signs if you have post-traumatic stress disorder. In this video, I'm not trying to diagnose you. I'm not trying to tell you what you may have. I strongly suggest that you go and seek out a mental health professional and to help you with what's going on within you. But I'm just talking about trauma and stress right now so I can get you on this journey with me of understanding how I view the book, The Deep. When trauma happens in the body, you notice that your heart is beating faster, maybe your breathing is becoming irregular, or you feeling like you cannot breathe. There are multiple things that can happen to your body when you're expressing trauma. As I said before, some people fight, flight, or freeze, the 3 Fs, right? So usually when someone freeze, typically, not all the time, that could be related to a sexual trauma. For example, I just recently read the book Conjured Women, and in Conjured Women, the mother of Ruth, Miss Maribel, was being raped by her slave owner, slave master, and when he would rape her, she would literally just freeze and think of this other world. Oh my God, is that a spider? Hi, Editing Bree here. I just wanted to add a clip here because, as you can see, I am definitely freaking out by this spider. I have a fear of spiders, so it makes sense that I stopped my thought and stopped recording. Like as I was saying, in the Conjured Women, Ruth's mother's Miss Maribel was an example of what the body does when you're experiencing trauma because she froze. She did not move. When you read the book, she talks about how she was imagining still being with her husband that her slave master killed. So she went to this other place to cope with the fact that she was being raped by her slave master. When a person fight, that can be an example of if something traumatic happens to you and you are just moving, you are quickly trying to remove yourself from the situation as fast as possible. The other example is fight. So let's say me and someone is having an argument. The argument leads to a confrontation. I get hit in the face and I just start punching and fighting and really getting into it with the other person. That could be one way in which my body responds to that trauma. Hi, I'm a little sweaty. Yeah, so it is good. I'm just gonna try to get through what I'm saying because I think real responses is important. So at the moment right now, you've seen a little clip of me seeing a spider, and my body responded to that stress and literally moved fast as hell. I took flight. I got out of there. My heart is beating. I'm hot. I'm sweating. I keep words together. I have a real fear of spiders, and it probably looked like a tiny spider to you, but it was not. And it's probably like this big. It's black. I still have not found it. I tried to find it. I did like get it out of its hiding place, and it was like running, but you know, spiders are just one of those things, and snakes, that I'm afraid of. And when I see it, my body is like, take off. But you think that the amount of times that I have been involved in different indigenous communities, that I would become better equipped to handle spiders, because some indigenous cultures believe spiders to be messengers from the spirit realm, and I am still very afraid of them. So I'm gonna try my best to get through this video, but I couldn't have planned that, you guys. I put my hair up. It was like, no ma'am, no ma'am. I don't even think I can sleep in my room. Freaking out about the spider. All right, I spent 2 minutes and 22 seconds going on about this spider. Other things that happen to your body when you experience stress is that some people get an increase of blood pressure and loss of fine motor skills. Like, for example, I was just trying to unscrew the bottom of the broom so I can have the top of the broom, so I can move stuff around and see where the spider was at, and I had a very difficult time doing that. When you're dealing with stress, your automatic nervous system is being impacted. Your automatic nervous system regulates your emotions. It's where your amygdala is at. So currently right now, I got a lot going on in my brain. But am I gonna do this video? Yes, but I am recognizing that there will be a lot of editing happening, because I am having a harder time conversing what I want to you guys versus when the spider incident didn't happen. Also, when you're in stress and your automatic nervous system gets impacted, it gets really active. Other parts of your brain become less active or dormant, and that is the parts of your brain that has to do with like decision making and other cognitive skills. To give you an example of how my automatic nervous system kicked in, I immediately thought, I'm gonna die. This is gonna happen. I'm just gonna die, and I'm in my house alone, and people are gonna come here and they're gonna find me 5 days later. It just was like an entire rumination of thoughts where it's unrealistic, versus if the other parts of my brain was active in regards to my normal baseline of how my brain processed trauma or stress, because I'm using the spider as an example of stress. If I was at my baseline, I don't think I would have catastrophized the situation, but I did. Am I still freaked out and looking in the corner as we speak, because I'm like, I need to see the spider if it leaves my room? Yes, and that is just what fear does to you. It just makes you hyper vigilant. It makes you either have a hypoarousal state, and that's literally what's happening in my body as we speak. Going back to the deep, Yetu displayed several instances in which she was hypervigilant. For example, she wanted to tell her mom the memories that was in her head, but she didn't want to because she already thought of the negative consequences of what may happen to her. She refused to engage with people socially due to possibly taking on their traumas or their thoughts or their emotions, which would lead to her feeling more pain, and taking on the traumatic burdens of other would have just been too much for a historian, or a person really. In cases in which she experienced hyperarousal, and it was when her emotions were too much and overbearing, when she felt like she couldn't see the line of where she started and other people's memories begin. It just became all clustered through, and she didn't really feel that she had a voice or that she had her own thoughts. So one of the scenes in the book talks about a memory that she had and how someone asked her, hey, what are you thinking? And she said, you know, just something, and I'm paraphrasing. And the person was like, oh, tell me. And she was like, because I hold memories for other people that I have to share, I'm going to keep this one for my own. In that same vein, one of the most unfortunate byproducts of trauma is that when it happens to you while you're still developing in adolescence, early childhood, other memories, if they are not supporting that survival instinct, they are not implanted in your memory in the way that memory is implanted in your brain. For example, Yetu couldn't really remember anything about her life. She remembered moments and fragments, but it was hard for her to really hone down who she was until after she left. That is a classic byproduct of trauma. Yetu was dealing with a lot. She was dealing with the memories of over 600 years of traumatic experiences. So her getting an ice cream cone with her mom, that didn't happen. But a memory like that does not serve you in a survival mode. So that memory won't stick in your brain as if another memory that is trying to help you cope with what you're going through. Also, Yetu did herself a huge disservice by not speaking about the memories that she held. Although it was not Yetu's idea to keep all the memories to herself, it was the first historian, I'm blanking on his name, who made the decision that one shall bear the burden of all. That decision really can negatively impact a person. So let's say something happens to you and it's traumatic. The incident is so traumatic that you are unable to use words. You're unable to even speak about the incident. However, although I know firsthand how painful it is to speak on something that happened to you, an egregious act, something that rocked you to your core, preventing yourself to speak on it will cause your body to have an interruption in the natural way in which your brain processes healing. Which means the longer you don't speak on it, which is why I think therapy is very important if you're able to access it. If you're unable to speak on it, then in the long run, your body, your brain won't know how to process trauma naturally and heal naturally. You may feel stuck, or that why am I easily triggered, or why am I always in a state of hyperarousal, or why am I always hypervigilant? And it could be because you're not talking about what's going on, because keeping it in could do you more harm than good. I read this post on Instagram. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but it was saying things to do if you don't have access to a therapist, have the money to afford a therapist, or even have a therapist. One of the tips, I think it was the first tip, it said follow therapists on Instagram. I believe that to be the most prime advice. There is an Instagram page called The Empowered Therapist. And let me tell you, I screenshot so hard. That page is really informative. It hits the nail so hard, so good. It's so relatable. and it's definitely all about healing. There's also a page called Notes to My Therapist or Notes of My Therapist. I'll try to find that before the video upload. If not, I'll just be on the lookout if when it pulls up in my feed again and then update it on this video. Let's take some time to talk about the implications of what happened to Yetu and the Wajanru people as a collective and its impact and how it can be translated to Black mental health. Black mental health is something that needs to be checked in on when it can, and I would argue that more often than not. A lot of times in different Black communities throughout the diaspora, we believe that, you know, you're crazy or something is wrong with you when you seek out a therapist. When that is not the case, you are choosing you and you are seeking out someone that can help you heal and understand the ways in which you are perpetuating things that are not that good for you and empowering you in the ways that you need to be empowered. Black mental health is important because as Black people, we have experienced collective trauma. We're experiencing collective trauma right now with the national and international uprising against police brutality. Every time a Black man is shot by a police officer, we are experiencing collective trauma. Every time Brianna cops are not being arrested, we are experiencing collective trauma. That is collective trauma. The things that we have experienced on a daily basis, which could be microaggressions, those are collective traumas. Ibram X. Kendi would even argue that there's nothing micro about it, it's aggression. I read a book recently called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, I believe. And the book talked about how trauma is passed on from generation to generation and how when a person is experiencing traumatic stress, literally something in your DNA changes. He talks about how oftentimes people will come to him and tell them how they are feeling some type of way or experiencing anxiety or depression about something that they haven't personally experienced, but when Mark goes through their family history, they find out that it was a generation before them or a generation before that. Mark says that you can experience or feel the trauma up to 3 generations prior. There are also indigenous communities who believe that it's just passed down generation after generation of feeling that. So if African Americans are experiencing collective trauma going back to 3 generations, that 3rd generation is most likely a great grandmother or a great grandfather who was born into slavery. So imagine how that may make us feel. In the state of the world, lots of people are hurting. But right now, I'm talking about how collective trauma impacts the Black community, the Black African diaspora, and the negative impacts of it on our lives. Like I've talked already about how stress happens in the body, what stress looks like, what happens to you when you experience stress. For example, I didn't see the video because it was too hard for me to see it. I don't think I ever will see it. I don't think I have the mental capacity at this time to watch it. But when George Floyd was on the ground and an officer had his knee in his neck, George Floyd's body response to that stress is he didn't move. I don't believe he moved. I believe he just kept saying, "I can't breathe," and was calling out his mother. That is a response to stress. There was no option to fight. There was no option to leave, which is flight. So what's left? You freeze. No matter the method of one of the 3 F's, his life was still taken. So when a black person watches that on TV, or get a Instagram post or a Facebook post, or however the information is being given to that person, it is traumatic. It is a trauma that all black people feel. Some of them may not feel it in certain ways as other, but it is impactful on our lives whether we realize it or not. Black people, you did not wake up yesterday and realize that you were black. The world did. And I say, while you're out there protesting, while I have been out there protesting, while you're out there putting your bodies on the line, also understand that your mental health matters. Take a break, rest, journal, do some type of movement, mindfully eat, mindfully drink tea, do some yoga, some deep in and out practices. Do some mindful meditation, a body scan. Do what you need to do to restore you back to you. Call a therapist. Go online, look up things. The internet, Google is amazing. Google will never be as good, in my opinion, as an actual therapist. My biggest tip for anyone who have experienced trauma in their lives: when you start therapy, whether it's your first time or you've been doing it for a while, try your very best to not end your session on a new or already been spoken about, just any traumatic experience, because in therapy, your therapist is supposed to work with you and help you self-soothe and help you use your self-care mechanisms to close your, what I like to call like your Pandora box. If you bring that up at the end of session, oftentimes therapists don't have extra time. It may be a boundary thing to dive deeper into that traumatic experience with you, which leads you just raw and just having all the feels. You want to look at therapy as, I'm going in, I'm processing, I'm using the tools, and I'm wrapping up. If you work on that, you will have a better experience in therapy, and also using other things outside of your therapist. Like for me, I take care of my plants. That helps me a lot. I journal, I bullet journal, I sing randomly, I paint, I try to be creative, I go on walks. There are different things that you can do that can help you, again, restore yourself back to you. If you're in therapy, I would suggest that you talk to your therapist about possibly using cognitive behavior therapy methods, dialectical behavior therapy methods, focusing on emotional regulation and distress tolerance. I would recommend that you try some yoga, some deep breath practices in session. I would recommend that you try eye movement desensitization and processing. I probably didn't say the D word right, but it's called EMDR. A lot of times that has really helped people, especially in the long run, and especially dealing with trauma that's been in the past. I want to thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, for liking and commenting. I apologize that I experienced the height of stress in this video, but I do think that it is a perfect example to discuss with you guys about how your body processes stress. Am I still freaked out? Yes, I am. It was a lot on my brain of thinking about because of the spider, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just let me know in the comments what you thought about this video. Also, let me know how you're dealing with your stress. Do you have a therapist? Are there other tools that you use to manage your stress, to manage your triggers, to make sure that you are saving some space for yourself, which is very, very important. The reason why I did this video is because I really wanted people to understand the deep and the psychological and traumatic implications of yet to not facing the things that's going on with her. Yetu displayed a lot of symptoms that coincide with post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I thought that in this world that we're living right now and all the uncertainty with COVID-19 and financial issues, and also again the national and international uprising against police brutality, global warming, forest fires, like there is so much going on in the world that we're probably all gonna get post-traumatic stress disorder either vicariously or like directly. So definitely take care of yourself. Please do. I'm going to try to take care of myself and try to put my room back together and just let that spider live its best life, and hope that it just get into one of my plants and live its best life in there and leave me alone. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.